Hey, welcome back to Behind the Emerald Veil podcast with Mandy and Allison from Soulstar Energy Collective. We are intuitive mentors and healers here to teach others how to reconnect, tap into their intuition, and understand how it is speaking to them. How is it going?
Good, good.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We are going to get into, I think, the concept of journeying with our spirit guides, what that means, where you can go, all the fun things that comes with that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing connection to have and to if you're at all curious, like a curious person, it's an amazing thing to be able to connect to because there's so much that they can like show you that's
Hmm.
beyond our existence type of
Yes,
thing.
I
Hmm.
agree.
Yeah.
So when you work with your spirit, why don't you give a little bit of an overview quickly for anybody who is newer to this or hasn't really listened to our podcast up until now? Do you just want to do a general overview of like what a spirit guide is?
Yeah, so a spirit guide is basically it's a energy, it's a soul that is guiding you from the other side. They've, experienced and gone through their own evolution and ascension and have, got to the point where they can basically like, it's kind of like mentoring mentoring other souls on their journeys. And so the your spirit guide is, been with you your whole life. They've probably been with you many lifetimes. They know exactly kind of like what you need to progress through this lifetime. If trying to basically help your soul that is has amnesia, so can't remember what the kind of like blueprint plan was. So they're kind of like there on the other side trying to help you to achieve what you kind of set out to achieve in this lifetime. So it's pretty damn cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the most frustrating things about this concept or about having a spirit guide is that they'll also like put obstacles in your way when you're not
Mm-hmm.
meant to go down a certain path. And it can be so frustrating to try to understand what the purpose of that obstacle is. And then you always get the message to see things from the higher perspective, and you're like, I can't see that fucking higher perspective.
I
Like,
know.
so I feel like that's probably the hardest part, but also, I guess, understanding that they're there to put obstacles in your way on purpose so that you aren't kind of veering off your path when they're trying, because their purpose is to keep you on, to try to keep you on that the path, like to what you're supposed to be doing in this lifetime, like the lessons
Mm-hmm.
you're learning, the opportunities you should be receiving in order to learn those lessons, like all those sorts of things. So our guides are, they can be, it's a great relationship to be able to foster and to understand, but it's like a love-hate relationship, I'd say sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm like, and I think like depending on the guide and, they're all so different.
Oh yeah.
Some are very hands-on, some are very hands-off. Um, some are fun and playful and some are more serious. And, it's kind of like they're perfectly matched to your soul in a sense
Mhm.
that it's exactly what your soul needs. So if your soul's needing more playfulness, you may have like a fairy guide that, has mischievous excitement, playfulness to it. Or if your soul's kind of like needing to be really guided and maybe even here to learn some of the hard lessons, they could be more serious. And then some are just like way more hands off because that's what your soul wanted, was to kind of really try to navigate it on your own. So yeah, it can be super fun, and then definitely like that love-hate relationship for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about journeying and I guess like what that means. Do you like, because you can experience journey through meditation, which is how we do it, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people can experience a shamanic journey or like a journey through taking plant medicine.
Yeah, like psychedelics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, that's not something we've ever
No.
done. So I can't really speak to that. I kind of like look at things like we obviously have access to this stuff without needing anything, which is kind of cool. Like whether you do that or not, that's a personal prerogative, but it's one of these things that we all have access to be able to journey if we want to, and there's nothing outside of us that we need to have to be able to do that, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, and I think the whole point of journeying, regardless of how you do it, whether it's through plant medicine or with a shaman or with your guide in your own meditation, I think the whole purpose of journeying is to do some healing work, right?
Mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm.
and to learn, because there's, when you go into meditation to journey with your spirit guide, they're going to show you things and they're going to teach you things. And you can do that, like you do that through plant medicine, but almost in a sense, like, I don't know I've never experienced a plant medicine. So I know a lot of people go to plant medicine in order to experience a journey like that, to have these epiphanies and these realizations and these big healing moments and stuff. But you don't have to do plant medicine in order to experience that. And I remember talking to one of our students previously who really enjoyed doing, still probably really enjoys doing plant medicine because it's a different experience, I'm sure. But I remember us telling her at some point, like, when you learn how to connect to energy, how to read energy, how to journey, how to work with your guide intentionally, you're not going to have to do plant medicine in order to have those experiences and those big epiphanies and heal the things that are being called to heal.
Yeah, I think she even, at some point had, when we were doing some of the journeys and some of the things that she was receiving, she was just like, this is like wild that I'm
Mm-hmm.
receiving this without, I've only received this when I've done, plant medicine or whatever. This is wild that I'm receiving. It's like a same type of trip in a way, type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see the benefit of, the psychedelic journey, the shamanic journey, in the sense of like getting your
Ego.
your ego and your conscious mind out of the way. So there's definitely healing that can be so deep that you consciously can't even access.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I can see that value in that for trying to get to beyond your consciousness and get that deeper. That does, I would say, allow you, it kind of opens up those doors to allow you to get there if you
Mm-hmm.
if you can't get there otherwise.
Yeah, and I imagine what you learn in those journeys, you would be able to bring forth those lessons or those epiphanies, those realizations, and kind of try to work through those consciously, I guess, in a
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, even in the sense of like it erupting, like bringing forward, I've heard of people that the emotion that comes
Hmm.
through that is like, can be like overwhelming, but also like what a beautiful release, to kind of
Absolutely.
like have that. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd ever be able to do it. I'm too scared of those things. So probably not.
I don't know. I used to feel very similar. Like I've never been somebody who's done drugs or anything like that. I think I've smoked pot a few times in my life, and alcohol or whatever, but I've never done like hard drugs or even mushrooms or anything. But I
Right.
think the more I go down this path, the more intrigued I am about, I guess, about the experience that you can have. I'd like to know the difference. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
experience the difference. Because I imagine it would be like a vibrational difference, perhaps.
Yeah,
So,
it would definitely be a curiosity thing. I definitely have the curiosity of what it is.
mhm.
Um, and to see kind of like the difference between it. But then I also have that like, you know, I don't, yeah, I've done pot like less than a handful of times, and not every time I've been able to handle myself. So I'm like, it's one of those things that I'm like, I don't know if I could
Yeah.
do the drugs and not get like in my head about it. But it's definitely like, yeah, it's so intriguing that it would be like, man, I wonder like how much deeper and how much like what else you could access
Yeah,
to experience
for
that
sure.
type of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
It's always interesting that we're talking about this kind of because I was just talking to Jace about, like he's at this age now where, there's parties, there's going to be drinking, there's going to be opportunities to do drugs and like all these things. And so we talk about this sort of stuff, and I've been talking to him more and more about taking drugs, and like obviously don't do drugs, first of all. But if you're going to do drugs, obviously
Mm-hmm.
don't do hard drugs, make sure it's plant medicine, right? But then even taking it a step further and talking to him about the I guess the responsibility of protecting his energy if he's going to
Mm.
open up to be in that space. Because part of the process of journeying with your spirit guide, whether you're going to take plant medicine or you're not, there is a process to connect so that you can connect and receive safely and not open up your energy to those lower vibrational beings, those darker entities. And so you can see, if you don't do it responsibly, these energies can, come in and affect you afterwards or for a longer period of time afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this, you think of people in your life that may have addiction problems, right? They're not protecting their energy or doing an opening safely and disconnecting safely with regard to opening up their energy like that. It's just kind of irresponsible in a sense.
Well, and also like, when you're in a state of addiction, the vibration of that is lower.
Yeah.
And so that vibration then like vibration attracts like vibration. So if you're in that state and maybe doing it to run from something, hide from something, numb something, that holds a vibrational energy that will match maybe with lower vibrational beings that will then just intensify, and make that whole cycle harder. Where if you are going on this beautiful shamanic journey,
Mhm.
with the intention of going in and being held and healed and all that stuff, that's a completely different vibration. And again, it's going to attract like vibrations. That's a much higher vibration. So it's kind of like when people say, is drugs a low vibration? It's like, it depends.
Mhm.
It depends on
Yeah.
the intention,
Mhm.
where what the person's there for, all of it. That creates the vibration, not the
Absolutely.
actual drug itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, so interesting. And so when we're journeying with our spirit guides, what are some of the places? So, okay, so just so that people are clear, like there's a process to connecting. You need there's a safe way to do it, and there's a safe way to because there's a connection and a disconnection. So it's like bookending your experience, your meditation. You connect safely and then you disconnect safely. This is something that we teach in our Meet Your Spirit Guide course.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested in learning how to do that. But then also, I guess the next step would be, connecting with your spirit guide. And then there's a process to do that. And then experiencing a journey with your spirit guide. So we've been to some pretty cool places or seen some pretty cool things in our meditation while we're journeying with our spirit guide. This again is something that we teach in our Meet Your Spirit Guide course if you're
Yeah.
interested in learning how to journey with them and experience different realms. But what are some of the different realms that you've been to?
Um, yeah, so like the underworld, which is very like avatar-ish, really connected to like the fairies and magic and stuff like that. And then like the upper world, which is very like the angelic, the Akashic Records is a realm, in its
Mm-hmm.
own. The fairy realm, we've gone to like ships in the sky, that
Wait,
they've wanted to,
what kind of ships?
alien ships. Well,
I was like, what, like a pirate ship in the
no,
sky?
yeah, a pirate ship in the sky. Well, I'm like, yeah, and it's like not even it's like alien ships. I'm like, it's light beings. It's like
Yeah.
it's basically like,
Star people.
yeah, star people that like souls that incarnate in bodies that don't live on Earth. They just live somewhere else. And that's a form of transportation, when you really like break it down to it. Which is just like, yeah, it's so cool. Where have you gone?
Well, all the same places for you, or as you like. I really feel well the underworld, which is very grounding. It's very beautiful and vibrant down there. I really enjoy how I feel in the underworld.
Mm.
I really enjoy the fairy realm and the magic in that realm because, you and I both learned a lot working in that realm with Merlin.
Yeah.
And then also the angelic realm is so peaceful and just so calm and just so like full of love. I really obviously love going there. But also like this spirit realm where the Akashic records exist, the Akashic records hold so much information about your soul and being able to journey up there and experience that space. Then the galactic realms. I'll never forget the first time I connected to the galactic realm. I was in a meditation and I was connecting. It was probably one of the first times I journeyed in general. I didn't really understand what that meant or what the concept was. But I was in my meditation and all of a sudden a spaceship like just kind of like appeared in my meditation. And, part of the meditating is not judging what you're receiving because really
Mhm.
you're the only one experiencing it. Nobody outside of yourself has experienced this. So just allowing yourself to go with it. But, anyways, so a spaceship sort of disappeared in my meditation. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I saw that like it opened up and it was like I felt called to like explore it further. So going into the meditation or the spacecraft and kind of looking around, it really felt super busy in that
Mm.
spacecraft. Like it was almost like a busy, bustling city in a sense. Like there was a
Yeah.
lot of energy beings around star people just kind of like hustling and bustling about doing what they do. And then somebody was guiding, like my spirit guide was guiding me. I felt like I was being pulled to different areas. And I checked out different areas of the spacecraft and I was pulled into a different room and there was like a council of beings in there. And that's how I connected to my first council of beings, learned
Mm.
from them about kind of like what my mission is, like what my purpose is. I learned a little bit about who they were, and just like sort of allowed myself to go with it. So it was a really cool experience. And then, I've visited that ship many times since then and explored different areas of it. And, even part of what we do together with Soulstar
Hmm.
is stuff that I've learned on that spacecraft and from those beings. And I don't know, it's really fun. It's really interesting. That's how they teach you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And the thing is you have to make the time to like connect and to do these things, like I know like there's been times like that I'm going to connect for something else or you've done that too. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you haven't intentionally connected in a long time. So before you do that, we're taking you somewhere else to like teach you something or show you something. And I think even part of like the journeying, it's like even trying to understand what you are seeing,
Hmm.
especially when you're going to a different realm, because you are going to be shown things that you don't have in your mental capacity. And so sometimes it's really hard to kind of grasp on like how do you even explain it. um, I remember one time going to Sirius and them taking me to the planet Sirius, and my soul has had a lifetime or a few, I don't know, there. And they were like taking me on this journey of like the beings on that planet can swim in the water, like it's kind of like mermaidish in the sense it
Hmm.
can be land and water. And it was just like they were just completely taking me on this like journey of like swimming under the water and what that's like, and then coming up. And again, like you can definitely feel like I can see why that psychedelic trip it can be so like it can be so similar because you're sitting there going like what the hell, like this is a trip, like. And then you even feel like it's so easy to even kind of be like, am I making this up, am I just having
Hmm.
like a really really big imagination type of thing, and that I think that's probably the hardest thing to get out of your head, to be able to um, allow yourself to experience it without judgment and to receive it.
Hmm.
Because if we sit there and we're just like, well, this is bullshit, or this is stupid, or you know, say they're showing you like something that looks like Avatar. Well, I'm doing that because I like Avatar.
Hmm.
All of the things, but like we've said many times that a lot of these movies, that so we take it as fictional, but a lot of these is like actually reality. It's just being channeled, like it's channeled in through the person, and then it's, viewed as, their imagination, their creativity to create these things. But in actual fact, it feels like it's just a real place that we're learning about, and now it's coming out in the movie on the screen type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I like actually, it's kind of neat in a sense to think of it that way, because really what's happening is like those beings are sharing that information through a human channel who is putting it, say, on the big screen so that, we have a reference point when we, if and when we experience that in a different way. And it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like little rememberings, right? Or
Absolutely.
little activations. There's so many activations that we experience throughout our day in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. I totally look at movies in a different way now. Like
Mhm.
when I see movies or shows and I start to see crossover with what we've seen, or what we've experienced,
Yeah.
I start to realize, like, holy shit, this was never fictional. This was reality,
Yeah.
all the Star Wars and stuff like that. Um,
Even the Marvel movies right now are
yeah.
really, really showing, like lifting the veil on a lot of things. And what I find fascinating is like the concept of portals. So
Mm,
when you're in a journey and you're receiving and going places, sometimes you kind of, it feels like you're moving through a portal, like a energy portal, and you're just kind of like zooming to the space because it's
yeah.
really your consciousness that is going, right? Your consciousness is leaving your body, your physical body when you're doing a journey. And so these portals, and you see these in the on the big screen or in the movies, and you're like inside, I'm just like, oh my God, that's so real.
I know, I know. Yeah, it's well, and even like in like space, like we are just light.
Hmm.
And we know that light just travels as it is.
Yeah.
Um I'm watching Avatar: The Last Airbender with the boys. It's on Netflix, and it's like talks about, the elements and like using air and using the fire and all these things. And um the one episode we were watching was like this kid who is able to, like, literally looks like he's going into meditation,
Hmm.
and he's able to access the spirit realm.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting there like, my God, like this
This this is what
this
I
is
do.
this is all real. Yeah. And I was trying to explain that to the boys. I was like, oh, I'm like, I've been there. And then of course it was like, in this spirit realm, there was, because you have to make it suspenseful. In this spirit realm, there was like, stay on the path, or else this, goblin thing is going to get you. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly how I experienced it. So, because I was like, oh, God. But it's just like, and then in it, it's kind of like, it's like he goes into a state of consciousness, and
Mhm.
then when he comes to, he's in the same area, but it's behind that veil. It's in a different realm. So
Mm.
he can walk along this in the same area, but it's like in a different vibration that nobody else could see him. So it's super, super fascinating. Like, he goes and connects to past, passed over airbenders. And so I'm like, it's all the stuff that
Yeah.
we do. And I'm like, this is amazing that this is being, you know, put together and shared. And I just wish that everybody could sit there and be like, this is actually real stuff.
I know. Well, you think about it, they've been sharing that for like how so long. Like there's tons of movies that we can think of from the past that talk about these sorts of things. And now we're going to be like, oh yes, I get it, I see it, I see it. But then also on the flip side, so they share, what potential we can tap into, but also on the
Mhm.
flip side, they share some of the darker stuff through Hollywood and,
Yes.
and movies as well, things that we should be prepared for, or things that could potentially become a reality. And I think
Yes.
they used The Simpsons for
Oh
that
man, The
purpose.
Simpsons was crazy.
It,
Well, it's because it's disclosure, right?
yeah.
Because that's a big part of like free will and
Hmm.
the laws, the universal laws. You can't take away our free will. And so this was like a loophole to, um, basically it's like they're giving us,
they're disclosing us
they're
what,
disclosing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
a lot of people are like so crazy about The Simpsons and they're like, oh my God, The Simpsons is predicting our future. And here we are, and we're like, actually, no, they're using The Simpsons to tell us what's going to happen.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Hmm. And it's the
Yeah.
law of non-intervention. I think that's
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Where they
law.
can't
Yeah. Where,
change a trajectory or something like that, like any powers. So whether
yeah.
that's darker powers or,
Hmm.
yeah.
So we're all focused on like that stuff, like through the media, through TV, through all the things, and they're planting the seeds and manipulating us in that sense, so that our collective brings that to fruition, right?
hmm
But what we're not catching is the flip side, where it's like, oh shit, like I have all that power to go into meditation and to receive and journey and experience and connect to like all of these crazy beings or galactic beings, or even like past celebrities that are of the light. Like you can learn how to connect to those once you learn how to tap into your intuition and into that energy and into that realm.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
And I think like the important thing of like journeying with your guide is like, your guide is there to support you and to protect you and all of those things. And so, if you're like, I want to experience something, it's kind of like you're not ever going at it alone.
Hmm.
That they're kind of like there to help out. And it's like, I just feel like it it just feels safe, and more doable. Like, because I know it can be, this stuff can be kind of like scary to some people, where it's just kind of like, oh God, like I don't know what I'm going to be tapping into, and all of those things. And it's like your guide's there, like they're your bouncer,
Hmm.
they're there, and you're leaning on them. Any meditation that we go into, it's like we just know there are guides there. That's not a if and or but,
Hmm.
and at any
Hmm.
point, if we're like, I don't understand this, it's just like we just like turn and are like, tell me what's going on or
Yeah.
whatever. And that really comes from like connecting with them more and more and more, so that you start to create, when you just know that they're there, and when they're speaking to you or however they're communicating. It's like that stronger that bond is, then the
Hmm.
stronger it is to be able to journey and receive from them.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about working with your spirit guide intentionally is that you have to be able to see them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not the case, because seeing is just one of the ways that our spirit guides communicate with us. And not everybody has that skill, but not it's not everybody's strongest skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that you don't necessarily need to see your spirit guide in order to communicate or work with your spirit guide intentionally. And again, like we go through this in that course that we were
Yeah.
referring to. But being able to just connect intentionally. And again, there's like a process to do that. So you're making sure you're doing it safely and you do feel that connection regardless of whether or not you can see your spirit guide.
Yeah. And I think that's as much as we can say that, and we'll say it in the course, we'll say it in class and all that, there's still like this like hold
Yeah.
that people have, that are like, but I just don't know them, or I don't see them, or I don't know their name. And I, I get it, because we were both there at some point too, where it was like, well, it doesn't feel real if I don't have anything like tangible.
Hmm.
But that's a very human, obviously, thing. We want to name something, we want to label something, we want to be able to see it, because if we don't see it, it doesn't exist. And intuition is very much a trust of you. Literally, it's trust. You just trust what you're receiving,
Yeah.
because you're
Trust
not going to get,
and
yeah,
surrender.
yeah,
Trust, main themes of intuition, trust and surrender. And it's
surrender.
fucking hard to release that.
Well,
So,
yeah, absolutely. And
mhm.
like the name and stuff, like, obviously you can name them whatever the heck you want to name them. Because like
Mhm.
people be like, I don't know, I heard like George. Cool, it's George.
Yeah.
Like, because like at the end of the day, they don't care. They're literally doing it for you, because you
Yeah.
just like need to label it something. And they're kind of like, I remember H saying, you can when I didn't like the name that I got, he was like, you can call me A, you can call me H, you can call me Allah, whatever you want to call me. I don't care. And because I was sitting there all hung up on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of felt like he just kind of got frustrated, like, I really don't care. And so it was like, oh, that was like a realization of like, you don't need to be rude about it, but no. But it was like just that realization where I was like, I guess you're right. Like
Yeah.
it's so above them, like
Mm-hmm.
not that they're like it's hierarchy and they're above this, but like it's not a concept on that side. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not, because you see each other by your vibrations. So to them it's like, holy crap, why are these humans getting so caught up on a name? I don't care, use whatever you want to use. And then it's like, oh, okay. I'm like,
Yeah.
which is kind of like fun too, in a sense, you know.
Yeah, because you could, name them whatever you want to name them
Yeah,
and
unicorn.
change it if you want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, yeah. So I always like try, even when I'm meeting new guides
Hmm.
and stuff, but it's like, you still like, oh, well, what's their name? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't even ask.
I know it's just such a go-to question, like what it like, I guess
Hmm.
kind of like an identity, because that's how we identify with people on, in our physical reality is by
Yeah.
name and, you know, and then over there it's by vibration or by
Yeah.
light.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we
Hmm.
can't be like, what's their vibration like?
How would you even explain that?
Yeah.
It's the high? I don't know.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I know, but it's just funny how we kind of like work with that. And yeah, and then like the seeing and stuff. Like I've never seen H in a human form. The only thing I've ever seen is just a beam of light.
Hmm.
If I'm seeing that, like if like I never see, he's just there.
Yeah.
But I would say like at the beginning, when I did, it was probably just the beam of light that I've ever really truly seen. And other than that, I never see him. It's
Yeah.
like he's just in the air.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just an energy. You can sense him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. When I first connected to Cody, I did see him and it was a flash of like googly eyes. So like I know I talk about the
mm-hmm.
story about how I connected to his feet first and he was wearing gorilla slippers, but I
Yeah,
don't think I've ever shared that. Like the night before I was taken through that meditation to connect with my spirit guide, the night before I went to bed and I closed my eyes and I was about to drift off to sleep and all of a sudden the image flashed in my face to the point where I like jolted me physically, and it was his face and it was like big googly like cartoon eyes and like this soft, like he looks like a young man in a sense.
yeah,
And then that was really all I received. And then when I went and connected with him intentionally, because I was doing it with a mentor the next day, and that's how I connected with him. And she took me through meditation, blah, blah, blah. And then that's how I knew it was him. And I received his name quickly. But regardless, like the cartoon eyes really stood out to me. And it was like, that is another realm in a
mm,
sense that exists, is like because as cartoon is a cartoon realm, like there's tons of like little beings that look like cartoons that exist in a different realm, which seems crazy when you say that out loud, but it's reality. Like where else would cartoons come from? You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And the thing is like energy is energy. Matter is matter. However, energy, light and can create, which a cartoon is light, pixels, all of these things.
Yeah.
However, that can create, it can be a reality.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And it's like, and even in that sense of like your guide, like obviously at the end of the day, our guides are light.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
whatever forms we see is just what they're wanting to present to us,
exactly.
and that can change.
Hmm.
We've had where, well, Cody's has taken on many different looks and
Yes.
appearances at times, and we've had clients and students that their guides like, oh my god, they showed up like this, and then oh my god, and it's like, well, what does the vibration feel like? Like, does it feel like the same entity? And it's like, actually, yeah. And it's like, okay, like, because again, they're not really maybe stuck to a certain way of looking,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
like, if you go in to connect to somebody's spirit guide, and maybe somebody's like, well, I kind of saw like this, and well, I kind of saw this, and it was like, what was their attribute, like what did they feel like, and they would just describe it exactly the same, and then you're
Yeah.
like, yes, you're connected to the same energy. It
Yes.
doesn't matter what it looks like. So it's like, even in a way, it's even another layer of like, it doesn't matter what they look like, because they can just take on whatever, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, we also went to like the goddess realm. I
Oh,
forgot
that
about that one.
was me too. Talk about that one. It was so cool.
Yeah, go for it. I'm like, yeah, it
Okay.
was a super cool one.
So we went, okay, so a couple times we've been there now in different
Mhm.
readings, and we've connected to a past life or this realm in some sense or another. But basically, there's a realm that exists where it's full of like, oh my God, these powerful goddess warrior women. So thinking like She-Ra, thinking Wonder
Mhm.
Woman, like, and in that movie Wonder Woman, we were talking about how when we experienced that realm, how it really related to that scene in the movie where that's where she comes from, like this island with all of these beautiful women who are just powerful and goddesses and warriors, and they all are very empowered and in their, but also in their divine feminine. Like there's a beautiful balance there, and they're all very supportive. Like it's this beautiful sisterhood. So there's a realm like that that exists, that
Yeah,
you can go to through journeying with your spirit guide to experience and to learn from, to receive that energy, to receive that power and remember it, because we all have a piece of that in within us.
absolutely.
So I think both of us really enjoyed experiencing that realm.
Yeah, I'm like, well, and it's like funny how, because again, they're good, like spirit's gonna pull on your memory bank
Yeah.
of anything. And when that was being shown to us, it was like, man, I haven't thought of Shira in forever. Like that was childhood. And I
Yes.
remember even kind of being like, Shira, like what was that? Who was
Princess
that
of
again?
Power.
Yeah,
I think we went,
you picked up on the
yeah.
princess, and I because I was like, yeah, and I can see the doll that I had in my head, like the Barbie doll. And then they like then the we're showing a scene from Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene. And so it's like that's how they piece these things together, because
Yeah.
they have to use reference
Yeah.
within your bank. And so it's so fascinating. And then I remember like the client was like absolutely obsessed with Shira. And so then that's when you can like sit there and go, you just can't make this stuff up. Like,
No.
but it feels like when you're receiving it and getting it, it literally feels like, why am I thinking of Shira? That's what
Hmm.
it feels like. It feels like you've gone off and you've just randomly had a thought about Shira, and you're like, why am I thinking of Shira? That's stupid. Um, but that's exactly how intuition is. It's so
Yeah.
subtle like that. And
And
then it's
that's where
beautiful.
you have to let yourself go further, because we can sit there and judge ourselves and then we just wouldn't have gone any further, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
but because we were like, okay, let's just roll with it, then
Yeah.
we experienced so much more and received so much more when we were in that realm and experience, first it started with the reference of She-Ra and then took us to the reference of Wonder Woman. And then we got to experience even more, as in like the energy of that realm, the power of that realm, the femininity of that realm, and then receive the messages meant for our client at the time with
Absolutely.
regard to that realm. But you could see if we had stopped ourselves at She-Ra because it was so ridiculous, we never would have got further to receive more.
Well, and what we do in those instances is like, why are you showing this to us? This is
Yeah.
when we ask our guide
Yeah.
all the time. So if all of a sudden we're being shown something and we're like, okay, we experience it, we're like, cool, cool, cool. And then we're like, okay, cool, thanks. Why are you showing this to us? What is the purpose of
Yeah.
this for this reading? Which is like, again, like it ties back to your guide. It ties back to even people who have developed their intuition. And I think that's a big part too, where we kind of see the evolution. Like we have our alumni space, so past students who want to continue to grow and go deeper, and all of that. We have this space that we get together once a week and can continue to like expand it, go deeper, and all of that. And that's part of it.
Hmm.
Part of it is like asking those questions, like not being like, oh, I saw this, I don't know why I saw it, and moving on. It's like, it's taking that time to be like, yeah. And then I was like, well, what the heck is this? And going deeper and stuff. And it's just like, yeah, it's so getting curious, I guess. And it's such an amazing trip, I guess, type of thing. Because
Yeah.
we can literally feel the energy
Yeah. And I
when we're
think
within it.
it's so fascinating because when we're receiving and we're in a different realm and or even a past life, um, as the intuitive that's receiving, we can feel everything. It feels so impactful, so empowering, so whatever it is that you're receiving. And then for us, when we're receiving for ourselves, that's so helpful on our healing journey or on our journey to understand certain things or on our journey to move forward or whatever it is. It can be so empowering to be able to feel that energy for yourself. But then on the flip side, it's hard to express how you felt or how that felt for you when you're
Mm.
trying to share that with a client or a student, which is part of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Because when you can learn to do this for yourself and you can experience that for yourself, then you truly are reclaiming your power and standing in your power to be able to move forward or remove blocks or understand things about yourself that, you can hear from somebody else. But it's just so different when you can experience that for yourself. But that's truly where we come from as intuitive mentors and teachers is we
Mm-hmm.
just want, because we can experience for ourselves, we just want everybody to be able to experience it for themselves too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, there's this concept of remote viewing out there, which is basically journeying.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing. You're going into meditation, you're sending your consciousness out there, but you're going to maybe a specific event or time or place and watching it. And it's funny because like sometimes you can sit there and be like, oh man, I want a remote view. And then you're like, well, wait a minute.
I do.
When we do, like when you go to a
Yeah.
past life, what are you doing? You're literally the creeper watching a scene unfold. So, and in that sense, like maybe we're going into it kind of going like, oh, show me a lifetime where this happened. And it's being shown to us, where I guess remote viewing, you're being specific and saying, no, I want to go
Hmm.
here,
Hmm.
versus just being led by spirit. But I'm like, it's still all the same thing. Like remote viewing, yeah, you're journeying with your guide, you're going and watching, witnessing something. And it kind of like, oh, I came across an article or something, and it was this like high up level government worker who was a remote viewer. And it literally
Hmm.
says on Wikipedia that this, like, he was a remote viewer
Yeah.
for, I don't know if it was the CIA, for something. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it was just like,
They've been
am I
doing that
so
since the
cool?
70s, haven't they?
Well,
Or the
yeah.
50s or something? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, so it's like, this hogwash that some people look at it as. And I'm like, you literally just had this, high level agent
Hmm.
that was his job, was to remote view. And I'm like, it's you can't sit there and be like, well, I believe that, this and this, and the government wouldn't lie. And it's like, well, this is a thing,
Yeah.
like I'm
And
pretty sure they wouldn't be, yeah, spending, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on this guy and paying him a salary if it didn't work.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's just a different way to gain access and information from your enemies
Yep.
or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And isn't
Mm-hmm.
it interesting? Well, it's not, I mean, obviously the government hides that sort of,
Totally.
they just suppress our light by all
Mm-hmm.
of the things that they have rolled out for us over the last, I don't know, 100 years, perhaps. I think it
Yeah.
would probably start from the Industrial Revolution where, power and corruption and control really started to take um, hold of the collective with all of the inventions and changes and all the things. Part of their intention was to control the masses,
Yeah.
right? And suppress their ability to really understand who they are at a soul level. And
Yeah.
again, coming back to what we do, is we're so passionate about bringing people back to themselves so that they can understand themselves at a soul level and, allow themselves to be intuitive beings so that they aren't controlled any
Well,
longer.
it's reclaiming their rightful
Hmm.
abilities.
Yeah.
Like we all came here and have this. But we, it's like being gaslighting, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
we all have it. It's not like some of us haven't, somebody's taken it away. It's like,
Yeah,
no, we've just, this gaslighting has happened where we don't believe we're as powerful as we actually are,
absolutely.
and so now that's in a sense like we are calling that back and being like, okay, wait a minute, you don't get to
Yeah.
tell me who I am and what I can do. This
Mm-hmm.
is, what I hold,
Yep.
so.
We all hold it deep within
Mhm,
us. It's just a
mhm,
matter of remembering. And I think, we're working on a new course. And one of the things that we share in that course is like, the concept in the sense is like, it's taken our whole lifetime to deprogram from our intuition that we came into this life with.
yeah.
Everybody has this. And so, part of reconnecting to your intuition is like a remembering, but it's also a process. So it's not going to
Mhm,
happen overnight. It's a skill that you need to develop because it's something that you've been working to undevelop for years,
yeah.
right? So it's not going to, it's going to take time to do it. And so having patience, it's like practicing anything, like whether you're learning a new instrument or whether you're learning, a new sport or whatever it is, there's dedication and intention and creating the time to practice your skill or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So that's important to remember too when if you're wanting to develop your intuition.
Oh, for sure. I'm like, and every single one of us has different layers of programs,
Hmm.
limiting beliefs stacked on top of that,
Oh,
and it's going to be all individual. So, really depending on like how you have, what your upbringing has been, what you kind of, your belief system, like it may take somebody longer to work through those weeds
hmm.
to get to that part, and maybe somebody else, they don't have as many weeds and they can get to it a lot easier. And yeah, it's really fascinating, like for, because we've watched how
Hmm.
many students move through this process,
Hmm.
and we've watched from the very beginning of like, I don't think I can do this, what the heck am I doing, and then like every step. And so it's like this, we see the theme,
Yeah.
we see the things that the people are moving through, we've seen all of those, and it's like, yeah, it just depends on how thick that veil has been set for
Hmm.
you,
Hmm.
and how quickly you can get to it or even want to get to it by the practicing. And um it was funny, this morning I was talking with colleagues and a little bit about what we do, and like the one was like, because they were kind of like, trying to understand and like, oh yeah, like Reiki and all these things. And then like the one was like, yeah, like energy, like when you get close to somebody, you can feel that. And I was like, totally like, yes, you can. And it was like, and she was just like completely kind of like, like there's that force, or you can feel the energy. And I was like, exactly. And then it was like, you walk into a room and all of a sudden the energy shifts, and like, and it was just like these light bulbs of like everyday stuff
Hmm.
that we do.
Hmm.
And if you just change your perspective on it slightly
Yeah.
and see it from that angle, you're like, holy shit, that's been there the whole time. I literally
Hmm.
have seen this my whole life. I've experienced this my whole life. I just was just not even aware of it.
We were just unconscious to it. Unconscious?
Yeah, I'm
Is that the right
conscious to
word?
it. Yeah, we
Unconscious to
like,
it.
you're just not, when you're not aware of something, you
Hmm.
you can't fathom it. But
Yeah.
once something's brought into your awareness, just like with our awakening, once
Yeah.
once certain things got brought into our awareness, you can't undo from that. But you also, like, once it's brought there, it to make so much sense, and you see everything where you were blind to it before because it
Yeah.
just wasn't in your awareness.
And it's so subtle. I think when people like also I guess like a misconception is that when you start connecting or doing this work or whatever, like it's like everything is so subtle and you're going to miss it probably that you're doing it to
Mm,
begin with because unfortunately, I think I was expecting it to be like super climactic and exciting and like a big party and like, oh my God, paradise online. I can see all
yeah.
that sort of stuff. And it's not like that. There's no party, there's no celebration, there's no congratulations. It's more of a, oh shit, like an awareness that I've been doing this already for a while. I just didn't realize it. So it's such a subtle shift when you start to activate and turn on and understand how your intuition is speaking to you, that you could very easily miss it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's because like part of it feels like it's superpowers. So,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been led to believe that superpowers are these grandiose things. Um, and it does feel like, you could dub it as a superpower. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you can hear people's thoughts. Oh, you can send your consciousness somewhere else and view something like that. Sounds like the movies, like
Yeah.
this is, and so then they've glorified it in this sense of like when somebody else gets their superpowers, it's like the lights from heaven come down and they're like, and all these things happen. And so
Get
it's like
bit by a
that's,
spider or something.
yeah. And like this big event happens. And so, that's probably where we get that expectation of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do see it as like, oh, it's something outside of myself. It's a superpower that I'm going to receive. And then it's like, no, actually it's always been there. You just haven't been utilizing it or you weren't aware of it. And it was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And so that's why you don't get this big, you know, scene of something. I remember thinking like going to psychics, and because some people have the ability to like see things with their physical eye,
Yeah.
their third eye, their physical eye, and see things in their own reality. And not everybody has or is wanting that.
Yeah.
I know I've seen things obviously in my peripheral. I've seen things, but I'm like, it's one of those things where I'm like, no, I don't think I really want to, open my eyes in the morning and see things. I'd
Well,
rather
what if
them,
it was an alien?
well, not when I'm waking up in the morning. They need to be very like, I think if I was seeing an alien, I would want to see it with somebody else.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to be by myself in my house in the dark. Like, come on, that's just
Me
like
either.
that feeds into the movie thing way too much. I'm like, they got to be strategic, but but I remember thinking like that's what would happen when my third eye. I'd be able to be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there's a spirit right here, and I literally see he's wearing purple and he's got this, and as much as I'm like, oh, that's so cool. When somebody can and is doing that with their physical eye, I'm also like, but I'm not sure I really want that.
Mm-hmm.
I can close my eyes and ask a soul to come forward and to show me an image.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather receive that same image there than with my physical eye standing in my bedroom. Like,
Me too.
yeah, yeah, but
Especially at night and in a mirror.
oh no, no. I always just remember the stupid mirror and I swore Carter walked behind me,
Oh yeah.
and that is just creepy. Like I can see it right now in my head. Like I literally watched something walk behind me. It wasn't a shadow. It literally was like it looked like Carter. It looked like a human. Um, and so I'm like, in that instance, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want that. I'm
No.
like, I scare easily. Somebody's in another room and they walk in and say something and I scream.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. So I'm like, I do not need to be like brushing my teeth and have something in the mirror. Absolutely not. Like I'd be screaming all the time. I like screamed this morning because the boys, they're at their dad's this week, but they walk here in the mornings for me to drive them. And I was using the blow dryer and I had music on. And of course I was in my head, thinking. And they literally, and I knew they were coming. Like I was literally waiting for them to walk in. And he literally walks in and is like, boo, like just not even that much. And I screamed so loud. And I'm like,
I can just picture it. I can just picture it.
yeah.
You will even startle if like you're waiting for me to come on Zoom or something, and then you're looking at your phone and I'm like, hey, you're like, "What?"
Oh, I scream. I know.
Yeah.
And like, or even if like we're doing our connection, our own individual connection, and we're just like, both of us are silent, and I know you're gonna say, okay, I'm ready at any point. And I get startled.
Yes.
So it's just, yeah, no spirits, please. Not that way.
Not that way. Not
No.
that way. Oh,
Mm-mm.
well, what are any other realms you want to talk about? We talked about the goddess realm, but I think I guess with the cartoon realm, like there's every type of realm that you can think
Oh,
of.
there's so many for us to discover. And
Hmm.
I think that's the coolest thing about doing readings is that
Hmm.
we get this opportunity to learn and be shown things. I don't have time, to go into meditation constantly and be like, okay, show me something new, I
Yeah.
just I as much as I'm curious, I'm like there. I think there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I just don't have time for that. But
Hmm.
but we get to see this in our readings when we're going in and getting the opportunity to read for somebody,
Hmm.
and then we get shown all these different things, and so
Hmm.
it's exciting because it's like what else is going to come. I know that it's always going to progress, and there's
Yeah.
always going to be something new. I don't It's
Yeah.
never going to be stagnant.
I'd say my favorite part about the readings that we do together is the past lives that we get to experience and the different realms that we get to learn about or experience and visit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And even seeing like when there's like in a reading when we're there and we're like, oh, I don't understand this.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden something ties in, or all of
Yeah.
a sudden we're like plot twist, and we're like, holy shit, this was this. And it's like and so it's like very much in the readings where we're kind of going and we're like, okay, I don't really fully understand what that means, or weird, or whatever it is. And then when we get that aha moment where all of a sudden we're
Yeah.
like,
It all ties
holy
together.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah. And
best.
especially when we learn something new.
Yeah.
That one I always get hyped up when we're learning something new in the
Yeah.
readings.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
much fun.
Yeah.
Well, so
So
if
if you want to book a reading,
we are available.
yeah. Yeah.
But also, if you want to learn how to journey for yourself, check out our Meet Your Spirit Guide course because in that course we go through, how to connect to your spirit guide safely.
Hmm.
Um, and then also how they're communicating with you or how they could be communicating with you. And then also we take you on 2 journeys to the upper world and the underworld, so that you can experience that in a guided meditation, but then do it for yourself with your spirit guide on your own, at any time. And then once you get to know the concept and experience journeying a little bit, then you will start to experience other places as well. Some of the places that we talked about, maybe some places that we haven't even experienced ourselves.
Yes.
So, and it's all individual to your soul and your soul's purpose and your mission and things that you might be healing in this life or lessons that you're learning in this life. So, everybody's going to have different experiences. And I think, talking about trying not to judge what you're receiving and allowing yourself to just flow with it and surrendering, those are the hardest things. But honestly, once you can get past that part, just like, oh my gosh, so beautiful.
Yeah. Give yourself permission to be crazy, because
Yeah,
you're going to think you're crazy. You're going to feel that. So you know what? Just give yourself permission to be crazy and see what comes.
absolutely. All
Yeah.
right, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.